Hi. The film I'll be talking about today is Ad Astra. This film was directed by James Gray and stars Brad Pitt, Tommy Lee Jones, Donald Sutherland, and Liv Tyler. This film was released in 2019, and I remember seeing the previews for it and thinking that it looked, interesting, but that I would wait until it came on TV. I didn't think it would be worth buying a ticket to go see with the expensive prices of movie tickets now. That was an enormous mistake. I would have given anything to have seen this film on the big screen. It is so beautiful, so aesthetically rich. And as much as I enjoyed it watching it on television, I can only imagine what it would have been like in a movie theater. Now, that being said, even though you can't see this film at the theater now, it is still very much worth viewing. You'll still be knocked out, but if you're not one of the lucky ones that got to see it on the big screen, you'll know what I'm talking about, because as beautiful as it is, you can only imagine on a screen that's big in a movie theater. It's the type of film that reminds you of the magic that can go into going to the movies when they're done properly. And what I love about this film is, even though it is so aesthetically beautiful and the shots are so well done and just staring at it is a pleasurable experience, the plot is very well written. They didn't shortchange the dialogue like some directors do. For instance, like James Cameron, who's a very talented filmmaker, and I love the first Terminator. The second one is good, but has its moments. But a film like Titanic, a very well-made film, you can tell is being done by a filmmaker that knows exactly what he's doing. However, I thought the dialogue was a little hokey and would be something that you'd see on any standard soap opera. With this, you don't have to make that deal like, well, we're just not going to get good dialogue, but wow, look at it. You get both. And when you get a director, a cinematographer, and a screenplay that are all at the top of their game, you've got one hell of a merger. This film is about Roy Crawford, who's played by Brad Pitt. And he is this astronaut who seems to have complete and total devotion to the space program and the goals that they're trying to achieve at the expense of everything else. And there's a narration in the film where he's talking about, I will be pragmatic, I will focus on what is essential, and we understand that to him, intimacy and human relationships are not essential, they're distractions. They get in the way of the main goal. As the movie goes on, we realize his father was the most celebrated astronaut in the history of the program, and he went on this mission called the Lima Project. And everybody had just assumed that he died, and they made him out to be this hero. Into the film, we find out he may still be alive. And they kind of drop this on Brad Pitt and are like, we need you to kind of reach out and try to contact him. And I'm not going to reveal everything. Normally I do in my movie reviews because the films have so much age on them. I feel like, if you hadn't seen it at that point, it's your fault. But since this one came out in 2019, I will tell you Tommy Lee Jones, who plays William Crawford, is alive. Or excuse me, not Crawford, McBride. I don't know where I got Crawford. Okay, Brad Pitt plays Roy McBride. Tommy Lee Jones is William McBride. And Brad Pitt's character, Roy, comes to the realization that his dad may still be alive and that they need him for this mission to go about contacting him. And the journey there, it made me think of Apocalypse Now on their journey to find Marlon Brando's character, which was kind of similar to Joseph Conrad's novel, The Heart of Darkness. On this mission, we know, even without me telling you, oh yeah, by the way, he's still alive, you watch this film, you're going to figure out that they will meet. And the things that happen along the way are so relatable that you could be someone who completely hates the science fiction genre. You could have no use for it. I'm not big on it. But this film transcends that. And it reminds us that science fiction can be very interesting when it's Now, again, this is my opinion. I've never had any use for things like Star Trek or Star Wars. Uh, I don't know, any of the other stuff that they trotted out, Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff like that, where it's more effect over anything else. It's more about visual distractions more than, making an actual connection with the character. They're kind of like cardboard cutouts. But this film comes at it from an intellectual standpoint. And it's kind of like those Philip K. Dick novels that he wrote that were not so much about explosions and how cool everything would look, but like how we would be in a world like that. And granted, it does look breathtaking when you watch it. But the characters and making that connection with them on such a human level, you never get distracted by the beauty. It just simply enhances the film. And it really is a film, more than being about space or whether we're alone on this planet, whether there's other signs of intelligent life. It's a film, oddly enough, about relationships and about how the relationships in our life can sometimes suffer depending on what our priorities are. And how Brad Pitt's character, Roy, has been impacted and somewhat imprinted by his father. And in his elusive quest, in some ways, to become his father, to take on his father's persona, to become this man that he held in the highest esteem. But we see he's doing this at such a great cost. And at a certain point, he'll find that to his father, this was no cost. It's the way things have to be. And there's a line in the film where he says to him, I never loved you or your mother, you and your small ideas. And you see this hit him. And it's in this moment that Roy has to kind of make a decision. Does he can admire his father, but does he really want to be his father? Is that what he wants his life to be? Simply quests, his work, achievement, accolades, epaulets? That's what it's going to be? And watching Brad Pitt's character wrestle with that, of a moment of coming to terms with what does and what does not matter, what's lasting, what's ephemeral. And Brad Pitt plays this character beautifully. And I give a lot of credit to Brad Pitt as an actor. He has chosen some very odd characters to play from the very beginning. In True Romance, when he's playing the stoner with the long hair, he's hardly in the film, but everybody who's seen True Romance remembers him in the film. In another film like California or Snatch, or some of the other films that he's done where he plays against type, 7, 12 Monkeys, he's always been willing to play characters rather than play a caricature, the good-looking guy. And he easily could have cashed in on that and chose not to. And then we have Tommy Lee Jones, who oozes intelligence with everything that he says, and is so perfect in this film because Tommy Lee Jones brings that stature that's needed for his character to create that anticipation for when they finally meet. And I think what helps Tommy Lee Jones is, if you think about it, he hardly ever does interviews. You don't see him, now it's Fallon, Kimmel, well, I don't know if Colbert's around anymore, but at one time it was Leno, Letterman, Conan O'Brien, all those guys. You never really saw him there. He's got this kind of stone face. He's got this aura about him of intelligence, of seriousness, of a no-nonsense kind of guy, this intimidation factor that very few actors in this day and time have. And he uses it almost like a weapon. I mean, it is beautiful to watch him exercise that. And seeing he and Pitt together in that father-son dynamic. This was the third time I've seen this film. And The first time it knocked me out, second time, and then the third time. And it's truly one of those, this sounds so cliche and I've said it before, but you'll always come away with something new. And the main reason I want to do this because it's a great film. Absolutely. But what got me excited about doing this film was that it did come out in 2019. Now, I know that was 7 years ago, but a lot of the films I've done have been from the 70s, and like the films that I would consider recent have been 20 or so years ago. And to see a film that has come out in the somewhat recent future, or past, I should say, makes me hopeful that they still can do good work and that there are still actors out there looking for good material. There's not an abundance of it, but if you're willing to look for it, you can find it. And Ad Astra is proof of that. It offers so many different things for everybody. And I don't think you'll just watch it one time. And it's one of those that every time you rewatch it, you pick this up or you pick that up. And how many films can you really say that about today? If anything, when you watch films today, it looks like, well, I've seen this movie before just with different people in it. They all take the same plot. We always know how it's going to unfold, and we're never surprised. So if you're looking for something that will give you your money's worth, try Ad Astra. Until next time, thanks.